Effective immediately. Emery, your position has been terminated. The words hit harder than I expected, echoing across the glass-walled conference room like a gunshot. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. 15 years at Novogenics, gone in a single sentence. I didn't flinch. Not in front of them. Not in front of the team I'd hired. Trained. Fought for through budget cuts and midnight calls. They were staring down at the table, as if eye contact might make this nightmare real. I folded my hands on the polished oak surface, felt my pulse pounding against my wedding ring, and said the only thing that came to mind. Good luck with Friday's presentation. The silence stretched like a live wire. Sloane's glossy smile faltered. She was 32, MBA from some Ivy program, hired 3 months ago to modernize operations. Never spent a day in biotech before this job. She had buzzwords and LinkedIn charisma. I had relationships that had kept this company alive during the 2008 collapse. What do you mean? She asked, voice tight. I met her eyes and let the smallest smile curl at the edge of my mouth. You'll figure it out. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and felt every gaze follow me out of that sterile room. My heart hammered like it wanted to punch its way through my ribs, but my face stayed calm. Always calm. As I walked the hall toward my office, the one I'd built into a command center of trust and numbers, my phone buzzed. A message from Beth, my senior analyst, the one who knew every scar this department carried. She doesn't even know Hollowgate's CTO hates formal decks. My breath caught. Of course she didn't. She didn't know that Hollowgate's chief decision-maker despised PowerPoint Flash and expected technical calibration protocols explained without fluff. That was the kind of detail you earned over a decade of late nights and hard-won trust. I glanced at the time, the 10 o'clock Friday morning, 48 hours from now. Sloane Archer, the woman who had just gutted 15 years of my life in front of my team, would walk into that room thinking she owned it. And when Hollowgate asked for the answers, only I had. She'd finally learned the difference between managing people and understanding them. I slid the phone back into my pocket and pushed open my office door, already imagining the sound of glass shattering. Not literally, but reputations don't break quietly. The hallway felt longer than it had yesterday, the same polished floors, the same sterile glow of LED lights. But today, every step sounded like a countdown to erasure. Behind me, the conference room door whispered shut, sealing off the echo of Sloane Archer's voice. Effective immediately. I opened my office door slowly, as if expecting it to bite, for 15 years. This room had been my fortress, walls lined with victories, shelves crowded with relics of late nights and impossible deadlines. Now it was nothing more than a stage for a quiet dismantling. 2 cardboard boxes waited by my desk like executioners' coffins, HR's courtesy. I stared at them for a long time, willing them to disappear. They didn't. I started with the photographs, my team on launch day, grinning like they'd just bent the laws of science, which, in a way, we had. Beth, cheeks flushed with pride, clutching the first Hollowgate prototype like it was gold. Tom, sleeves rolled up, translating specs for a Shanghai partner at 3 a.m. because time zones didn't care about contracts. I slid the frames into the first box, glass clinking softly. A soundtrack for endings. Next came the awards. Heavy plaques engraved with my name, proof of the years I'd kept Novogenics alive when the market wanted it dead. I remembered 2008, the recession-bleeding competitors dry. I'd brokered deals no one thought possible, called in favors I didn't have, turned trust into currency while others folded. We thrived because of me. The last item stopped me cold. A chipped ceramic mug. Cheap print peeling after too many dishwasher cycles. World's best mom. Casey had given it to me when she was 8, back when business trip was just a phrase, not a ghost that stole birthdays. I wrapped it in paper. Careful, like it was something fragile, because it was. I sat back, staring at the life I'd crammed into one box, and wondered if loyalty was just another word for leverage. Pulling open the bottom drawer, I reached for the last of my files and froze. There it was. A thick blue binder labeled Client Engagement Revamp. My handwriting on the tabs. Neat and certain. 3 months ago. I'd built this for Sloan, a roadmap to the relationships that kept this company breathing. Detailed notes on compliance, negotiation patterns, even Hollowgate's quirks. A post-it clung to the cover like a scar. Her handwriting, round and careless, too traditional for modern business. I stared until the words blurred. 15 years of keeping Novogenics alive. And this was what killed me? I felt the heat rise behind my ribs, sharp enough to taste. I flipped the binder open, pages whispering secrets Sloan would never understand. Hollowgate's CTO? Hates PowerPoint decks, prefers raw data, calibration protocols explained without fluff. Their procurement director? Makes decisions based on feasibility timelines, not cost-saving gimmicks. Details you don't learn in boardrooms. Details you earn. My phone buzzed against the desk. Calendar alert. Friday. 10:10 a.m. Hollowgate pitch. 48 hours left. I closed the binder slowly, like sealing a wound. Then I sat there, staring at nothing, fighting a war no one could see. Should I call Marcus? Warn him? Save the company I bled for? Or let them choke on their arrogance? The questions circled like vultures. For years, Novogenics was more than a paycheck. It was purpose. It was family. But family doesn't fire you in front of your team and call it progress. I shoved the binder back into the drawer and slammed it shut. The sound cracked through the silence like a verdict. Box 2 was almost full when I taped it closed. The rip of the seal louder than Sloane's smug little "effective immediately." I grabbed my coat, lifted the boxes one by one, and walked out without looking back. Behind me, the walls still gleamed with their sterile perfection. Ahead, the clock ticked toward Friday morning, toward the moment Sloan Archer would walk into that pitch grinning for cameras, blind to the storm already forming. And maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't stop it. The hallway behind me vanished in the rearview mirror. But the echo of that conference room still clung to my skin. Effective immediately. I thought the words would ring once and fade. Instead, they replayed like a bad song while the city lights smeared across the windshield. I didn't turn on the radio. Couldn't. The silence was heavy, louder than the click of my turn signal. Red lights pulsed like warning beacons, blinking through the glass as if the universe wanted me to stop and take stock. 15 years dismantled in a single afternoon. And for what? For someone who thought strategy meant a shiny LinkedIn post and a buzzword buffet. Billboards along the freeway mocked me. Innovation, speed, disruption. The same words Sloan Archer tossed around like holy scripture. Words Marcus lapped up while ignoring the simple truth. This business ran on trust, not trend reports. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles pale against the leather. My mind drifted to the early days, the scramble of 2008, when the economy was in free fall and Novogenics teetered with it. I'd been the one calling clients at midnight, begging for extensions, renegotiating contracts with promises I didn't know how to keep. Until I kept them. We didn't just survive, we grew. And now? They'd traded all that for someone who didn't even know Hollowgate's CTO hated formal decks. The glow from my dashboard read 10:30 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway. 32 hours until the biggest pitch of the year. 32 hours until Sloan stepped into a fire she didn't know was burning. Grant met me at the door with a quiet smile. The kind that asked a question without words. "Long day?" he said gently. I nodded, throat too tight for more. Boxes landed on the kitchen counter like gravestones, photos, plaques, a chipped mug that once made me cry from pride. I left them there and walked straight to the shower, hoping steam could rinse away the humiliation clinging to my skin. Sleep didn't come, My mind wouldn't let it. At 2 a.m., I gave up, padded to the kitchen barefoot. The tiles felt colder than they should. I poured coffee I didn't need and opened my laptop. Not to help them, God, no, but to quiet the storm inside my head. That's when I saw it. An unread email from Novagenics PR, time-stamped 7:45 p.m. Subject line: Press release draft. Novagenics secures record-breaking deal this Friday. My pulse kicked like a startled horse as I clicked. There it was in black and white, glowing quotes from Sloan Archer. This partnership reflects our modernized approach to client engagement and efficiency. Novagenics is proud to deliver innovative solutions with unmatched speed. I let out a sound, half laugh, half choke. They'd already told the world. Public commitment. Headlines waiting to pounce if Hollowgate walked away. This wasn't just a pitch now. It was a live grenade. And Sloan had pulled the pin herself. The phone buzzed on the counter, making me jump. 3 missed calls lit up the screen. All from Sloan. Then, a voicemail icon blinked like a warning. I pressed play. Emery, it's Sloan. Need Hollowgate files ASAP. They're not in the system. Call me back, please. The next message came faster, voice fraying at the edges. This is critical. We're under pressure here. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the phone until the screen went black. Her name fading into nothing. She sounded nervous. Good. My eyes drifted to the blue binder in my bag, the one marked Client Engagement Revamp. The same binder she'd dismissed as too traditional. Every answer she needed was in there. Every lifeline she'd cut. For a flicker of a second. Loyalty whispered, help them. Don't let Novagenics burn. But pride roared louder. They made their choice. Let them feel what 15 years gone looks like. I closed the laptop gently, almost tender, and shut off the kitchen light. My phone buzzed again in the dark. Screen flashing Sloan Archer. I didn't move. 32 hours, I whispered to the empty room. Let's see how modern business handles that. Sleep didn't come. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen sounding louder than the city outside. My phone sat face down on the nightstand, its silence almost mocking. Sloane's name had stopped flashing hours ago, but the weight of those unanswered calls clung to me like static. The clock glowed dimly across the room. 4:15 a.m. Less than 30 hours until Hollowgate. Less than 30 hours until the fallout. I rolled onto my side, pulling the covers over my head, trying to trap myself in darkness. It didn't work. My mind kept looping back to the blue binder in my bag, to that smug post-it in Sloane's handwriting, too traditional for modern business. Every detail she dismissed was now her lifeline. And she knew it. The vibration startled me. Not Sloan this time. An international number. I hesitated, then answered. M? The voice was roughened by distance and static, but familiar. Tom. Shanghai time put him deep into his day. Tom, I whispered, sliding out of bed so I wouldn't wake Grant. It's early here. I figured. A pause heavy with something unsaid. I heard what happened. News travels fast. My tone was flat, practiced. It's business. Happens every day. No, he said quietly. Not like this. Something in his voice made me sit on the edge of the bed, heart ticking faster. What do you mean? You need to know something. His words were clipped, urgent. Weeks ago, Sloan called me, asked for every email you've ever exchanged with major clients, said it was for quality assurance, sounded legit, until she asked for originals. I froze, gripping the phone tighter. Originals? Yeah, she phrased it weird, wanted anything that could demonstrate inefficiencies. At first, I thought maybe compliance. Then she said, he exhaled hard. She asked if there was anything that suggested you withheld information or slowed negotiations. The room seemed to tilt, shadows stretching like accusations. She. What? She planned your exit weeks ago. M. Hollowgate wasn't coincidence. She just needed that win to make you look obsolete. The words landed like ice water. My breath caught. Not from surprise, but from confirmation. Somewhere deep down. I'd known. The training binder. The constant interruptions. The meetings without invites. This wasn't incompetence. It was strategy. My removal had been a project, and I'd been too busy saving her from herself to see it. She told Marcus, Tom continued, voice tight, that she could cut overhead and modernize client engagement, make Novogenics leaner, faster. You were her proof point. My laugh was low, bitter, sharp enough to cut. And Marcus bought it. Hook, line, and sinker, Tom said. I thought you should know. Thanks, Tom. My voice surprised me, steady, cold. I appreciate it. When the call ended, I sat there in the dark, the phone heavy in my hand. Betrayal didn't come with fireworks. It came quiet, like a knife sliding under the skin. I could fix this. In an hour, I could save Hollowgate, save the company, save people who didn't deserve this mess. Beth's face flickered in my mind. Loyal, exhausted, still pulling late nights because she believed in the work. But helping them meant saving her. The thought settled like lead. She fired me. Let her own it. The clock glowed again. 4:30 a.m. now. 29 hours to go. I opened my laptop. Not to dig for files, but to check the messages piling up on LinkedIn. Recruiters. Invitations. One from Driftshade. We'd love to continue the conversation. Monday works? I typed back. Fingers steady. Monday works for me. My phone buzzed again. Screen lighting with a name I didn't care to read. I deleted the remaining voicemails without listening. Each swipe a clean cut. They wanted me gone. I whispered to the empty room. They'll get their wish. All of it. The first hint of daylight crept through the blinds when I finally stopped staring at the ceiling. My laptop sat closed on the counter, next to a phone that had been buzzing like an angry wasp all night. The last voicemail from Sloan was still unheard. I didn't need to. I knew the desperation in her voice. The clock on the stove blinked 6 o'clock a.m. 28 hours left. I poured coffee, its heat biting against the cold inside me, and reached for the blue binder in my bag. The one labeled Client Engagement Revamp. The one she called too traditional. I laid it open on the kitchen table like an artifact of a forgotten civilization. Tabs lined its spine. Client behavior, technical preferences, negotiation triggers. Each page smelled faintly of ink and late nights. Covered in my handwriting, sharp, precise, 15 years distilled into strategies you couldn't upload to a CRM. My fingers paused on a section underlined twice. Hollowgate Systems, Executive Profiles. I could almost hear their CTO's voice, curt and clinical. He despises slide decks, calls them performative nonsense. He wants raw data, calibration tables, not clip art. I remembered that first meeting 6 months ago. The competitor waltzing in with 50 PowerPoint slides and leaving in silence. The deal had been seconds from imploding until I sketched a diagram on a notepad and walked him through implementation like a fellow engineer. That moment bought Novogenics its chance. And then there was Procurement Director Lorna Gray, sharp as glass. Unimpressed by charm or cost-cutting gimmicks. Her mantra, speed and stability, beat discounts every time. Budget-friendly? She'd laugh you out the door if you couldn't prove feasibility. I smiled. Slow and bitter. Sloan didn't know any of this. She'd waltz in tomorrow morning, flashing buzzwords, while Hollowgate waited for proof they wouldn't find in a template. I flipped another page. And there it was. The clause most people missed. Tucked inside an amendment I'd negotiated personally months ago. Preferred vendor status contingent upon prior collaborative experience and submission of validated calibration protocols unique to project scope. No, in plain English? If Novogenics couldn't show proof of prior joint work and the exact calibration process I designed, the deal wasn't just shaky, it was dead on arrival. And only I had that documentation. The binder felt heavier now, like a loaded weapon resting on my kitchen table. A whisper of guilt slid through me. Beth. Loyal. Overworked Beth. Still grinding to keep the lights on. She didn't deserve the blast radius. Neither did half my old team. But then the post-it note in Sloane's handwriting flashed in my mind. Too traditional for modern business. And Marcus nodding like a puppet while she dismantled what I'd built. I closed my eyes for a beat, steadying my breath. Loyalty had a price. They'd decided mine was zero. The phone buzzed again. This time, not a call, an alert. Novogenics PR on LinkedIn. Thrilled to announce, Novogenics set to finalize a record-breaking partnership with Hollowgate Systems at 10 o'clock a.m. Friday. A new era of client engagement begins. I almost laughed. Public announcements. Congratulatory comments flooding in. Reporters tagging the company in threads about bold innovation. They'd turned the pitch into a headline before it even happened. Failure wouldn't just sting, it would detonate in front of an audience. I checked the clock. 7:30 a.m. now. 26 hours. I snapped the binder shut and slid it back into my leather bag. The sound crisp and final, like sheathing a blade. Tomorrow, at 10 o'clock a.m., Sloane Archer would walk into that room smiling for the cameras, armed with confidence and hollow slides. And then she'd learn what happens when you mistake experience for excess baggage. Sunlight cut across the kitchen table, glinting off the leather bag where the blue binder slept like a weapon. My phone vibrated in short, frantic bursts, the kind that used to make my pulse spike. Now. They barely registered. I sipped lukewarm coffee and let the silence stretch. Notifications glowed on my screen like confetti. Headlines, comments, corporate hashtags. Novogenics was everywhere this morning. The first post was Marcus, chest puffed and camera ready, grinning beside a quote that made me choke on a laugh. Novogenics is set for our biggest deal yet. Honored to lead a team that redefines client engagement. Watch this space. Watch this space? Indeed. They'd thrown a victory party before the battle even started. The clock read 9:30 p.m. Thursday night. 12 hours to go. I scrolled past the likes and digital applause, each one piling weight on a bridge already cracking. Investors gushed in the comments. Competitors hovered like sharks, pretending to congratulate. And there was Sloane in a photo carousel, chin lifted just so, captioned with her favorite mantra, "Innovation isn't optional." A text buzzed mid-scroll. Beth. She's in Marcus's office right now, showing off her deck like it's a Picasso, says Hollowgate will be blown away. I imagined the scene. Sloane pacing, gesturing at a screen glowing with infographics and buzzwords. The irony almost tasted sweet. Hollowgate's CTO would call it performance theater. He wanted calibration tables, not color palettes. He'd told me as much months ago, his voice dry as dust. If I see another animated pie chart, I'll walk. I could see it now, Sloane smiling too wide, spinning synergy into oxygen while the clock ticks. Beth's next text landed like a whisper from the trenches. She has no idea what's coming. Neither did Marcus. Neither did the PR team lighting fires they couldn't contain. Another blast hit my inbox at 10 o'clock p.m. A corporate newsletter dripping with confidence. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m., Novogenics makes history. I almost felt bad. Almost. The mug warmed my palms as I refreshed my email. And then I saw it. The subject line that made my breath hitch. Formal offer plus. Signing bonus. Drift Shade Limited. My thumb trembled just once before I tapped it open. The message was crisp, professional, laced with promise. Senior Director of Strategic Development. Competitive base plus 25% increase. Signing bonus included. Onboarding call Monday, if that works for you. I stared at the screen. Coffee cooling to sludge. Monday. 3 days from now. I could walk into a place that saw my value instead of trimming it down to a bullet point. The kind of place where no one would slap too traditional on the work that kept billion-dollar deals alive. The number in the offer was big enough to cover Casey's next 2 years of college, big enough to feel like validation wrapped in zeros. But that wasn't what hit me hardest. It was the line at the end. "We've been watching your career for years. We know what you bring." My throat tightened. 15 years at Novogenics, and in the end, the people who claimed loyalty never saw me half as clearly as this stranger did. The clock glowed again. 10:30 p.m. now. 11 and a half hours until Sloane Archer stood in front of Hollowgate with her hollow deck. My eyes drifted to the binder in the bag. It was almost funny. The answers she needed sat 6 feet from me. Close enough to touch. Proof of collaboration. Calibration specs. The hidden clause she didn't know existed. Everything. I wrapped my hands around the mug and let the question rise like steam. Do I save them? For Beth? For the team that bled with me? But another voice whispered louder. Steadier. Would saving them save me, or chain me to the same cycle all over again? I set the mug down, wiped the ring of condensation from the table, and opened a blank reply to Driftshade. Monday works for me. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Outside, the night was still, too calm for the storm, waiting on the other side of dawn. 12 hours, I whispered. Clicking send. Let's see who survives them. Sio. The city was already humming when I stepped into the coffee shop, sunlight slanting through the tall glass windows, cutting gold lines across polished floors. The smell of roasted beans wrapped around me like something solid, warm enough to drown the chill I'd carried for 2 days. I ordered a dark roast and slid into a corner seat by the window. The leather bag sat at my feet, the blue binder inside like a sealed confession I had no intention of reading aloud. My phone lay screen down on the table, but even without looking, I could feel the vibration starting. The clock above the barista's head read 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes to go. 15 minutes until the moment Novogenics had been screaming about all week, their historic partnership with Hollowgate. The same deal that had cost me 15 years of loyalty in one sentence. The irony made me smile. Soft and private. I picked up my coffee when it came, the cup warm against my palms. Outside, people moved with Friday urgency, commuters, parents herding strollers, a teenager laughing into her phone. Life went on, always did. The first buzz came at 9:47 a.m. I didn't look. I knew the name on the screen. It stopped, then started again, then again. By the fourth call, the phone was practically dancing against the tabletop. I flipped it over once, just to watch the name glow against the glass. Sloane Archer. 7 calls in 10 minutes. The vibration turned into a drumbeat, quick and desperate. I let it play, each ring a tiny crack in the armor she'd wrapped herself in. I pictured the conference room I knew so well, the glass walls, the long white table, the camera crew Marcus probably brought to capture history. I saw Hollowgate's CTO leaning back, arms folded, his expression as blank as a locked screen, while Sloane flipped through her parade of glossy slides. I could almost hear his voice, dry and sharp. "We asked for calibration specs, not theater." That memory tugged a smile to my lips. He'd said it to me once, during a break in a meeting, when another vendor tried to charm him with animated graphics. I'd saved the deal then by sketching a diagram on a legal pad. I wondered what Sloane would do when the only thing she had was a color palette. The 7th call stopped. Silence settled, thin and taut, before the screen lit up again, but this time with a text banner. "Beth, they're asking for you by name. Sloane is drowning." I stared at those words until the letters blurred. For a second, something twisted in my chest. An old reflex. The one that used to send me sprinting into fires. I could still hear Beth's voice. tired but loyal. From the nights we worked past midnight. She didn't deserve this, but neither did I. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, just long enough to feel the weight of choice. One call could save them. One email could hand them the lifeline they threw away. Then I remembered Tom's voice, brittle with truth. She planned your exit weeks ago, and the post-it note in Sloane's handwriting. Too traditional for modern business. This wasn't vengeance. It was gravity. Actions have weight. The barista called my name. I stood, collected my coffee, and walked back to my table as the phone buzzed again. Screen pulsing with Sloane's name. I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened my laptop. At the top of my inbox, Drift Shade's offer still glowed like a beacon. I clicked it open and let the words wash over me. Formal offer, signing bonus, Monday start date, another buzz, another call I wouldn't answer. By the time this latte cooled, the storm would have done its work. The coffee had gone cold by the time my phone lit up again. Not Sloane this time. The name glowing across the glass made me pause. Marcus Vale. For a second. I almost didn't answer. Then I slid my finger across the screen, my voice calm when I spoke. Marcus. Emery. His tone was sharp at first, then cracked in the middle like glass under heat. We need your help. I let the silence stretch, savoring the weight of those words. 15 years of service erased with one sentence. And now, here he was, clawing at the edge of the hole he dug. What kind of help? I asked, knowing exactly what kind. The Hollowgate team. They're asking for specs, the calibration files. He sucked in a breath that sounded like defeat. We can't find them. I traced the rim of my coffee cup, eyes on the street outside where life kept moving. That's strange, I said lightly. You have access to everything. We don't, he snapped, then softened fast, desperate. Look, we'll pay whatever you want. Name your rate. Just get here. The clock on the cafe wall read 10:35 a.m. They'd been in that conference room for 35 minutes, bleeding time and credibility in front of the one client they couldn't afford to lose. I'm not available, I said. Marcus's voice climbed. Emery, please, think of the team. Think of the company. The company didn't think of me, I said. Each word clipped, clean. You fired me in front of a room full of people, remember? His breath rattled through the line. We can fix that. We'll give you your position back. A raise, a bonus. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I let the question hang for a beat, then smiled to myself and ended the call. The phone was still warm in my hand when a text banner slid across the screen. Beth. She's tearing through your old office. The Hollowgate folder is empty. She looks like she's about to break. Another message followed fast. They're asking for the calibration protocols you promised. Sloane has nothing. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking softly, and exhaled through my nose. Not laughter, something quieter, colder. I'd packed that binder 2 days ago, sliding it into my bag without a second thought. It held months of trial and error, handwritten diagrams, calculations no software could replicate. Sloane thought systems could replace people. Now she knew better. The phone buzzed again, another call I wouldn't take. I imagined the scene like a painting, the glass conference room. The CTO's face carved from stone as Sloane fumbled through slides that meant nothing. Investors checking their watches. PR reps choking on their own headlines. Beth's third message landed like the last note in a requiem. Hollowgate just walked out. 10:45. Meeting lasted 20 minutes after they asked for specs. Marcus looks wrecked. PR team is spinning like crazy. I stared at the words until they blurred, then set the phone down and picked up my coffee. It was bitter now, cold against my tongue. But I drank anyway. The taste felt honest. Outside, the sunlight was warm on the pavement. Inside, My laptop glowed softly. Drift Shade's email still open at the top of my inbox. Formal offer. Signing bonus. Monday onboarding. I closed the lid gently and stood, sliding the leather strap over my shoulder. The bag felt heavier with the binder inside, but not burdensome, more like a crown no one else would ever wear. As I walked toward the door, the phone vibrated one last time. Sloane's name flashed bright, then dimmed to black. Power isn't loud. Sometimes, it's just not answering the phone. The sunlight outside felt sharper than it had an hour ago, slicing across the sidewalk like glass. I walked slowly, coffee cooling in my hand, leather bag heavy on my shoulder, with the blue binder tucked inside. The storm at Novogenics was now a roar behind closed glass walls. But out here, the air was weightless. The phone buzzed again. I glanced down and saw the name this time. Marcus Vale. Not Sloane, Marcus. The man who'd sat across from me for years, praising my instincts, leaning on my networks, and then nodded while Sloane gutted everything I'd built. I debated letting it ring out. Curiosity won. I answered on the fourth buzz. Marcus! Emery! His voice was taut, clipped, strung tight like piano wire. We need your help. I let the silence breathe, took a slow sip of coffee. What kind of help? The Hologate team. His breath hitched. They're asking for specs. The calibration files aren't here. We can't find them. I tilted my head, watching a woman across the street tug her dog along. That's odd, I said softly. You should have access to everything. We don't, he snapped, then softened fast, like he could feel the ground cracking under him. Look, we'll pay whatever you want. Name your price. Just get here. The clock on the cafe sign behind me flashed 10:15 a.m. They were 45 minutes into the meeting. I pictured Hologate's CTO checking his watch, lips pressed into a straight line. I imagined Sloane flipping through slides that looked like confetti, her voice shaking as each second carved deeper. I'm not available, I said. Marcus inhaled like a drowning man. Emery, please, think of the team. Think of the company. The company didn't think of me. My tone was glass. You fired me in front of my team, remember? We can fix that. We'll give you your position back. A raise, a bonus. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, I repeated, almost curious. Then I smiled and ended the call. The phone was still warm in my hand when a text banner slid across the screen. Beth, she's tearing through your old office. The Hologate folder is empty. She looks like she's about to break. Another buzz. They're asking for the calibration protocols you promised. Sloane has nothing. I stared at the words for a beat, then slipped the phone into my coat pocket. My fingers brushed leather, the blue binder still inside the bag, a weight both literal and poetic. Those specs never existed digitally. I wrote them by hand, building them piece by piece over months of trial and error. They'd called it too traditional. Now, it was the difference between a $30 million deal and ashes. Another buzz dragged me back. Beth again. Hologate just walked out. 10:45. Meeting lasted 20 minutes after they asked for specs. Marcus looks wrecked. PR is in full spin mode. I stopped walking, leaned against a sun-warmed brick wall, and read the message twice. No surge of triumph, no drum roll of revenge, just a strange, steady quiet in my chest. Gravity had done its work. I hadn't burned the bridge. They'd built it out of dry wood and handed me the match. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sloane. I answered, curious to hear the sound of glass shattering. Her voice came sharp, brittle. What you did today borders on corporate sabotage. We have grounds to sue. I laughed, low and even. Personal property, Sloane. Check my contract. You can't. I didn't take company files. Everything official is on your server. The notebooks? Bought with my money. Written on my time. If you want them, send a subpoena. Silence. Then a hiss of breath. I ended the call before she found words. Freedom feels different when it's real. It's not fireworks, it's the absence of weight. Another text from Beth lit the screen. Novagenics is trending on LinkedIn. Shares down 3% in an hour. People are calling it the Hollowgate disaster. I opened LinkedIn, thumb scrolling past Marcus's post from last night. Now drowned in comments like, "So, how's that biggest deal yet?" Screenshots, memes, hashtags blooming like weeds. The empire wasn't collapsing, it was already rubble. I closed the app, opened my inbox instead. Driftshade's email waited at the top. Formal offer, signing bonus, Monday onboarding. My thumb hovered, then tapped, reply. One line, confirmed. I hit send and whispered into the sunlight. This wasn't sabotage, this was consequence. 2 mornings ago, I walked out of Novagenics with 2 boxes and a binder. Today, I walked into a future they never imagined for me. Driftshade's headquarters gleamed like a promise. Glass walls, steel lines, quiet power humming through every floor. The receptionist smiled as she handed me a badge with my name etched in silver. Emery Blake. I slipped it over my blazer and followed her down a corridor that smelled faintly of cedar and new beginnings. The conference room was a cathedral of light. Patricia Holloway waited at the head of the table, her handshake firm, her smile steady, the kind of confidence that doesn't need to shout. She slid an envelope across the polished surface, crisp and weighty. "Your formal offer," she said. "As discussed, Senior Director of Strategic Development, 25% increase from your previous base, equity stake, signing bonus included." The pen in my hand felt heavier than it should, like it understood the gravity of this moment. I skimmed the numbers again, not because I doubted them, but because part of me needed to see them twice. Then I signed. The click of the pen against paper sounded like a door closing on everything behind me. Patricia smiled. "Welcome to Driftshade. Emery, we're thrilled to have you." When she left me alone for a moment, I sat there in the quiet, staring at my name on the letterhead. For 15 years. I gave Novagenics every ounce of loyalty I had, and in the end, they treated me like a cost to cut. Now, I wasn't a line item, I was the line they couldn't cross. My phone buzzed, for a second. I thought it might be a congratulations text from Beth. It wasn't. The name on the screen froze me for half a breath. "Marcus Vale," I answered, more curious than anything. "Marcus." "Emery." His tone was artificially bright, like sunlight on broken glass. "Let's talk. Friday was unfortunate. We can fix this." I stayed silent. Let him ramble. "Come back," he said quickly, words tripping over each other. "We'll double your salary. Full authority over client relations. You can name your title." For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. "It's not about money, Marcus," I said finally, my voice even as steel. "It's about trust, and you ran out of that 2 days ago." He started to speak, but I ended the call before the first syllable landed. I set the phone down, breathing in the clean scent of the cedar table. For the first time in years, my chest felt unshackled. No fire drills for someone else's mistakes. No late-night battles to keep a sinking ship afloat. Just possibilities stretching wide and sharp like the horizon outside the glass wall. I opened LinkedIn out of habit and froze. Not from fear, but from the poetry of it all. Novagenics was still trending. Hollowgate walkout sparks investor panic. Marcus's proud post from Thursday night was now a graveyard of sarcasm. "So, how's that biggest deal yet working out?" "Innovation isn't optional, right?" Guess preparation was. A new notification pinged at the top of my screen. "Welcome, Emery Blake, Senior Director of Strategic Development, Driftshade Limited." The comments flooded in within minutes. "Congratulations." Recruiter pings. Old colleagues sending thumbs-up emojis with captions like, Knew you'd land higher. The irony wasn't bitter anymore. It was sweet. Not because they'd failed, but because I'd stopped carrying the weight of their failure. Patricia returned, her heels soft against the floor. Ready for a tour? I stood, sliding my phone into my bag. As we walked past a frosted glass door, etched with my new title, I let the truth settle like warm light against my skin. Power isn't in the salary. It's in never having to beg for respect. They thought Friday ended me. Monday proved they were never in charge of my story. By Thursday morning, Driftshade felt less like an office and more like a blueprint for something bigger. My name glowed on the frosted glass of the door. Emery Blake, Senior Director of Strategic Development. But what made my chest tighten wasn't the title. It was what came next. I sank into the leather chair behind my desk, a view of the skyline blazing with sunlight. 2 mornings ago, I was walking away from a company that gutted my loyalty like it was a liability. Now, I was about to make a call that rewrote everything they broke. Beth answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. Emery? Director of Pharmaceutical Consulting, I said, letting the words settle like a dropped pin. Silence. Then a laugh that cracked into disbelief. You're serious? As serious as the offer letter I'm staring at. Full autonomy, competitive salary. You deserve the seat you were denied. A sharp inhale. I think about it, I said gently. But not too long. We move fast here. By the time I ended the call with Beth, my screen was already glowing with Tom's number. Head of International Growth, I said when he picked up. You in? His laugh was low, weary. You're not pulling my leg? Not even close. Asia-Pacific expansion is yours to run, if you want it. His voice softened. After the past week? Emery, I need this. So did I. Not because of revenge, but because these were the people who fought in the trenches with me when Novogenics was circling the drain. They deserved more than scraps from a broken table. By 11 o'clock a.m., the 3 of us were standing in Driftshade's executive conference room. Sunlight flooding the polished wood. It felt different here. Open. Electric. No buzzword pageantry. Just strategy and oxygen. Beth spread out compliance frameworks across the table, her eyes sharp with purpose. We can outpace Novogenics on regulatory turnaround by 30%. Easy! Tom leaned forward, tapping at his tablet. Asia-Pacific hospitals are asking for stability. We give them that, plus speed, and they'll never look back. I listened, a strange heat blooming in my chest. It wasn't pride. It was something cleaner, possibility. We weren't rebuilding what Novogenics lost. We were building what they never understood. The door opened mid-discussion, and Patricia Holloway stepped in, a folder in her hand and a grin that said everything before she spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, she placed the folder on the table with a soft thud. Hollowgate signed this morning. Beth froze, mid-sentence. Tom's brows shot up. I just stared at Patricia as her words sank like velvet-covered iron. They walked away from Novogenics last week, Patricia continued. Today, they signed with us. $30 million, effective immediately. Beth laughed, a sound somewhere between disbelief and vindication. Tom shook his head, grinning. Poetic justice. Patricia's smile widened. We're announcing in an hour. Industry press first. Then LinkedIn. For a heartbeat. The room blurred around me. Not because I wanted Novogenics to fall, but because this moment wasn't about them at all. It was about proof. Proof that integrity, preparation, and trust still mattered in a world drunk on shortcuts. By 2 p.m., the headline pulsed across every industry feed. Driftshade secures $30 million Hollowgate deal after Novogenics walkout. LinkedIn lit up like fireworks. My notifications drowned in comments. Strategic brilliance. Game-changing move. Recruiter pings piled in. Old colleagues sent messages layered with emojis and unspoken questions. I closed the app, letting the noise fade. Winning isn't loud. It's the quiet weight of something done right. Back in my office. The binder sat on the shelf, a relic now, more symbol than weapon. I ran a finger along its spine and smiled. They thought Friday was the ending. But endings aren't always flames and rubble. Sometimes they're foundations. Beth and Tom's voices floated from the hall, bright with laughter and planning. I turned toward the window, the city sprawling like a map of everything still unwritten. Revenge wasn't the point. This was. 6 months later. I stepped out of the elevator into Driftshade's executive floor. And for the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. The plaque on my office door caught the morning light. Emery Blake, Vice President, Global Strategy, 6 months ago. I walked out of Novogenics with 2 cardboard boxes and a binder no one valued. Today, I walked into an empire I helped build from the ground up. Driftshade didn't just grow, it exploded. Revenue up 200%. 3 new international markets. Hollowgate wasn't just a win, it was the domino that tipped 5 more deals into our hands. And the best part? Every success here wasn't about survival. It was about vision. I stood at the glass wall overlooking the skyline, a city pulsing with ambition, and thought about the day Marcus fired me. That cold room, those hollow words, the sound of everything I'd built being stripped away. Back then, I thought it was an ending. Turns out, it was a door I needed to walk through. My phone buzzed on the desk. A Bloomberg alert flashed. Novogenics CEO Marcus Vail steps down amid investor revolt. A sidebar headline read, "Failed modernization, push leads to 18% stock drop." And Sloan? Gone. Her LinkedIn profile had vanished weeks ago, like a deleted chapter in a book no one wanted to finish. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. They burned their own bridge. I just built a better road. Voices echoed from the hall. Beth leading a compliance briefing, Tom closing a deal live from Shanghai. Here, no one had to fight for air. No one had to beg for respect. This wasn't a throne I sat on. It was a table big enough for every person who deserved a seat. The phone buzzed again. This time with a name that made me smile. Casey? I answered. Hey, sweetheart. Her laugh spilled through the line. Mom, you're not going to believe this. My business professor taught your story today. I blinked. My story? They call it the Novogenics mistake. There's a whole slide with your name on it. For a second, the room blurred, not because of pride in their failure, but because my choices had become a lesson for her generation, not just mine. Did you tell them that's my mom? I asked, smiling into the sunlight. Of course I did. Her voice was bright with something I hadn't heard in months. Wonder. They said it's a perfect example of why trust beats ego every time. When the call ended, I sat there for a long moment, staring at the binder on the shelf, a relic of battles fought and lessons earned. My fingers traced its spine before I turned back to the window. City lights blinking like quiet applause. The truth settled over me like a second skin. The best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something they can never destroy. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to share your thoughts below. What would you have done in Emery's shoes? Drop a comment, I'd love to hear. Like this video if you believe respect is worth more than any paycheck. Subscribe for more real-life inspired stories of resilience and power moves. And share this with someone who needs to hear it today.